Hello Internet, Yuki here. I want to talk to you about game design. And I've been a game designer for quite a while, and mostly I've been doing independent game design, and like my professional game design experience is about 3 or 4 months working as a game designer in a small company, and that's a whole other story. But I want to focus on like bringing your game design to another level, because when I studied game design 10 years ago almost, it wasn't really obvious what game design was and how to work with game design and how to improve it and how to just make sure that your game is becoming better by trying it out. So what I was taught in school was, hey, you're a game designer, come up with a game idea, make the game, be done. And that meant that me as a game designer, I came up with the idea, and then I transferred that idea mentally to another person, and then that person, the programmer, implemented that game design, and then done. And I don't think that's a good idea, and I'm not sure if people work that way, but that's what we were taught in school, and I think that's horrible. And I think that, like, I'm just guessing here, but I think that a lot of people work like this. I think that a lot of new game designers work exactly in this with this concept. And one of my classmates who later founded a company, and don't want to. Okay, so I know who it is, and some of you might know who it is. And if you're watching, I apologize for throwing you under the bus here, but it's a good example, so that's why I bring it up. He said that, oh, you are the second best designer that I know. He said that to me, and I was like, oh, okay, so why am I the second best? And then he said, well, the best designer I know, he makes the game design once, and then it's perfect from the start. Like, he comes up with an idea, a game mechanic, and then we implement it, and then it's perfect from the start. Like, that's he, as in, once he fleshes out the game mechanic, that's done. It's solid. That's it. And I'm not really sure if I agree with that idea, because I've heard a lot of people, and by people I mean experienced game designers, such as like the superstar designers, talking about how it's basically impossible to design a game in your head and on paper and having that idea be perfect from the start. And I'm not really sure if it's possible to sit in your couch, have some coffee, come up with an idea, and that idea is perfect from the start. And by idea, I talk specifically about a small game mechanic thing, because game design for me is mostly about game mechanics, because I'm a very game mechanic oriented guy. And I don't think that's a good approach, because I think that you need to implement your game idea, test it, and like get it in your hands, like implement it and be able to play it, and then try it out and make sure that it was as fun as you originally thought. And if it isn't, just make something else. Like, I've been doing this by myself for a long time, and I've been doing this in pretty much all the teams that I've been working in as well. And one of the teams that I worked in, well, we kind of had this from the start. Everyone was thinking like this from the start. Like, okay, so we come up with ideas, we experiment with them, and then we implement the best ones, and then we experiment again. And that made sure that we actually won the competition that we were in. That was a long time ago, though. But still, like, let's say that I need a movement mechanic. So I need the player to be able to move from here all the way to here, to over here, or it's a combat mechanic, or some stuff like that. I always make sure that when I come up with the idea, I write it down, and then I apply what I call mutation. I use the word mutation because I like AI programming and genetic algorithms. Genetic algorithms, that's the word, yeah. And when you're doing genetic algorithms, I think that's the word. I can't remember, so long ago. But you use something called mutation because you change small parts all the time. Like you keep the solution as a whole, but you use mutation to switch and swap some tiny bits to hopefully make your solution better. So I call it mutation. So I come up with an idea, move from A to B, and the solution is, well, this is the idea. I write it down, and then I force myself to make at least 2 examples of how you could solve it in another way, so that you force yourself to think about alternatives. So the core idea here is, what is the alternative? So when I wanted to unlock my chest, that's a new mechanic. So there's a chest in my game, and you are supposed to unlock it in some ways. So okay, how do I unlock the chest? Well, one way to solve it is to not have it locked. One way to solve it is to craft a key. One way to solve it is to find a key. And one way to solve it is to not have a key at all, just converting a set amount of resources directly into opening the chest. That's what I have right now, and I know that it's not the best solution for it, but that's the one I chose. But there are a couple of different alternatives to solving the exact same problem, and by mutating the core idea itself, you get a lot of new stuff that you can choose from. So I have 4 or 5 different alternatives, and I can choose one of them, 2 of them, combine them, maybe by coming up with, like, by forcing myself to coming up with alternative ideas for how to solve this game mechanic, I come up with new and even better ideas. I don't have a perfect example of this, but I know that it's happened a lot of times. And like, instead of just grabbing the first idea that you come up with and go with it. So instead of just settling for the first idea, just make sure that you try to explore the game mechanic. And this process is like, I don't even touch a computer when I do this. This is on paper. And I wrote down all the alternatives that I could think of. And then when I sit down by the computer, then I pick and choose, and then I try to test at least 2 of them. So I have at least 3 solutions for the same problem, and I try at least 2 of them. And yeah, it takes a bit more time, but I'm pretty sure that you kind of have to, at least for me, like, you kind of have to experiment on paper and experiment on the screen. Like, experiment with, like, how does it feel? Does it feel good? Does it feel like 100%? Or is the game mechanic flawed in some ways, and how can you solve that by not remaking the whole shit? So just using the kind of game design mutation approach has helped me quite a lot. And I mean, I'm not the best game designer, I know that, and I don't make the best games, I know that as well, but it has helped me increase the quality of my game design. And at least my game design is a lot better now because of this, because I sit down and think about other ways to solve this. And I watched a video, another game developer's devlog a couple of days ago, and he was talking about this exact same thing. Like, okay, so I want to solve this problem by throwing, like, I want to throw a ball, and here's 2 different implementations of that throwing of a ball. So the problem is super small, throwing a ball, and by mutating this mechanic and implementing at least 2 of them, he was kind of able to see the different approaches and the different the different repercussions of those game mechanics. So one of them is using more buttons, and one of them is using more time, and what kind of game do I want to make, and all that stuff. And he's able to make a better decision by trying out a lot of these game mechanics, and maybe even implementing a third, a fourth, or combining them. And also that ties into playtesting, of course. That's what I've been doing with my combat system. I've been doing this with pretty much everything I can think of, but the combat system is the most obvious one, where I think I made like 7 or 8 different combat mechanics, and I chose the one that I thought was best on paper, and then I experimented with it a bit in the code as well. So to summarize, I don't agree with my friend saying that the best game designer is making the best game design mechanic, idea, approach on the first try, because he doesn't experiment. And I think that the most important part of game design is experimenting. And again, this is only my tiny opinion, but I'm not sure if anyone is interested in my opinion. But in order to make a better game, I think you have to explore and experiment and mutate your game mechanics by just trying to, like, forcing yourself to come up with a couple of different approaches to solving the same problem. I think that helps. So I don't agree with that friend. And I think that's it. I don't agree. And here's my alter words. I don't agree. And you've heard my opinion. And I think that it's super helpful to use this tip. And hopefully it will help some of you guys making even better games. And I don't know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think my idea is wrong? Do you think my idea is worth trying? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time, I hope. Goodbye. Love.